back to Cyber from the Frontline. Today we are talking about a topic that combines heartbreak and crime, and this is about online romance scams. Um, these scams have cost victims over $1 billion, according to the FTC. And behind those numbers are painful human stories of trust and betrayal. Joining me today is Léa, senior investigator at Graphika and author of the report that we are going to cover today, which is Looking for Love on All the Wrong Pages. Very interesting topic, Léa. And Léa is here to help us understand how scammers operate, why people fall for them, and what can we do to protect ourselves and our loved ones from this scam. So Léa, thanks so much for being here. It's always a pleasure to have you here. Can you start by telling us how you got into cyber and what motivated you to write this report on romance scams?
Of course. So thank you so much for having me, first off. And as you mentioned, I'm a senior analyst at Graphika. At the start, I absolutely didn't work on anything connected to romance scams. I kind of ended up on it by chance, if we can call it that way. My research so far has mainly focused on Russian state influence operations, extremist groups, their detection and disruption on social media platform, and anything that has to do with hacktivism. To arrive here, I studied not cybersecurity, but cyber strategy, as well as Russian language and Russian geopolitics, as well as post-Soviet space geopolitics. So to come back on romance scams, of course, like everyone, I heard about romance scams and pig butchering scams before, but as I said, I wasn't actively researching them. As I said, I stumbled upon them, searching for something completely different and monitoring something completely different. That was, I think, 2 years ago when I started increasingly encountering messages and accounts that belong to romance scam clusters during investigations related, for instance, on pro-Russian narratives targeting Ukraine, mainly through key terms. I was searching for a narrative talking poorly about Ukrainian women, for instance, because that was a very big topic after the invasion started in 2022, and very often started to end up on romance scams impersonating Ukrainian women. So, of course, I started to dig on that, keep a look for it and the topic in the back of my head. Especially after I started as well, as I was digging, discovering a whole ecosystem of victims groups on social media, family testimonies, and also ended up on live examples of scammers harassing victims. So when I got this opportunity to write this report, I jumped on it.
Awesome. And the report title is right on. It pretty much tells you what the report is all about. So a really,
Yeah,
really nice title to go with the topic itself. Uh,
thank you.
so going with that, right? These scams, as you know, aren't new, but your reports, as I went through it, it suggests that these have become a permanent fixture in online fraud. So I just wanted to unpack that with your permission, of course. Um,
Of course.
so the pretty much, why do you think romance scams remain so persistent, even as people are getting digitally savvy, people are aware of these, but still fall for it?
I'm going to start just with a distinction here to make sure that people know what I'm really talking about, like which romance scams I'm talking about, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
I don't focus on the ones that are coming from East Asian compounds, which are often more sophisticated
Mm.
and that work a bit differently on different levels. I'm focusing on the less sophisticated ones that are flooding social media instead, and very often linked to groups either in Africa or in South Asia.
Mhm.
So from my perspective, this is the easiest way of scams and of scamming people because it's very easy on both a technical and also on an execution level. because scams, especially romance scams, on the same line, you also have friendship scams that work very similarly. They're playing at a very emotional level. And with the ongoing trend of loneliness and social isolation that we're seeing right now, and that is unfortunately persisting, it creates for scammers a never-ending pool of potential victims through because usually people are lonely, so they're going to spend more time on social media. This is what studies show.
Right.
So it's the perfect environment because it's always also seen as a way to socialize, which means that potentially, if you're lonely, you're going to be a bit less you're going to be a bit less suspicious of people you don't know that approach you, and so on and so forth. And what we're seeing as well, why, in my opinion, they're so persistent, is that a lot of those scams are made to measure. This is what I try to convey in my report, is that this is not an American problem. This is not a Western Europe problem. This is a global problem where scammers are active everywhere, targeting users with very specific local celebrities, for instance, in celebrity romance impersonation scams. And in the sense they're doing that, and at the same time we see them capitalize on a range of both social and emotional issues, loneliness, financial issues, people wishing for a better life and maybe to move countries as well. We've seen that a lot, especially with scams that are targeting African women, and Southeast Asian and African men as well. But in that sense, it plays on such a wide array of topics that no one should think they're safe from romance scams, if that makes sense. And this variety also makes it why it's so effective and it keeps going on and on, in my opinion.
Got it. Oh, I think it makes perfect sense. And I was kind of curious, just digressing a bit, but of late, a lot, uh, it's not only about going on social media, right? But also people go on gaming sites as well. And um, I kind of sometimes wonder whether that also has an impact as well. Is that another, a place from where this could emerge as well? But
I think honestly, no platform is safe from
okay.
romance scam
Okay.
because where there is an opportunity, so far
Yeah.
experience has shown that there are scammers there. And it can be basic social media, it can be blog spots. We've seen some active on Blogspot as well,
Okay.
dating apps. So gambling would also make sense.
Noted. Okay. Uh, so let's get a bit deeper into it. Walk us through a typical scam journey. How does someone go from a casual message on social media to sending money over Telegram?
So what we've seen so far is that the main way of impersonation for romance scams is, I would say, threefold. The first one, or fourfold. The first one is impersonation of celebrity. The second is the impersonation of US military personnel,
Mm,
especially in scams that are targeting elderly American women and women in Southeast Asia. Thirdly, would be not celebrities, but influencers, and fourthly, member of the public, so people who are not celebrities who just get impersonated, unfortunately, in those scams. Um, I think the first step, of course, for those scammers is to create the accounts, and what we're seeing is that they are doing so in a very industrial manner, I would say. They create hundreds, if not thousands, of accounts in networks that are impersonating those people. Most of the time, those accounts are quite easy to spot because they are very low um, quality. In the sense, it's going to have a name, it's going to have a profile picture, maybe something else, one or two posts,
mhm,
but nothing else. It's really very low quality. So from here, once the account has been created, we see scammers get into the actual scam in the sense that they're going to start mass posting posts that often, as I said, imply a lot of emotions because what we're seeing, especially when it comes to celebrity and from military officers' impersonations, is that it really relies on first, obviously, loneliness, but also it has this celebrity factor and
Mm.
this high value factor that make people feel important. A person with a high visibility is getting interesting to you. That's
Right.
very flattering. But also, we are seeing fan behavior come into account as well here. We've seen that especially with K-pop fans,
Mm.
where scammers have started impersonating K-pop celebrities in order to do scam, like romance scams. And the post they post, why I'm saying that is that it usually plays a lot of empathy as well as on fear from my perspective, because very often those posts, so the account of the scammer poses as the celebrity, and the post posted by the page is going to say that the celebrity or the military personnel is very heartbroken or they're very lost in their lives, their significant other left them, they are on the verge of suicide. Sometimes we've seen that a
Mm.
lot, and for me, this falls into emotional blackmail at
Right.
this point.
Right.
Because the message that goes along with this statements is that you, as the person who read the message, needs to give the celebrity attention, need to save the celebrity because the celebrity needs you, and if you ignore them, you're gonna make them even more
Mhm.
heartbroken.
Gotcha.
Um, and you also have the aspect of what I've seen a lot in comments of people interacting under those posts is the normality that this brings to a celebrity. So
Mm.
you're looking at a celebrity from your fan angle, for instance, or someone who's been following their career, not even closely, but who've seen them on TV for years, for instance. And all of a sudden you see, I don't know, Keanu Reeves
Yeah.
saying that he's heartbroken and that he needs you as a person who lives maybe even in another country. And it gives like this sentiment of Keanu Reeves being a normal person in the sense, of course, Keanu Reeves is a normal person, he's a person, but not of as a celebrity, as someone you can relate to even more. In terms of behavior, when those posts have been posted, um, we are usually seeing if a victim and the point I would want to bring here is that most of the time the accounts are in the same network are going to be impersonating different celebrities or different military personnel, but as I said, it's very low quality, so they're reusing exactly the same messaging, the same basically text in the post. They just change the name of the celebrity and they change the pictures they're using of the celebrity. Because what we've noticed that usually it's like one post on social media that is accompanied that goes with either one or two pictures of the celebrity. Sometimes they are AI altered to
Mhm.
make them look, I don't know, comfy in their bedroom or presenting an engagement ring or things like this. Like everything to make it look like it's some personal pictures of the celebrity that are not released anywhere else. Um, and then to talk about the engineering between all those scams, so you have the post that gets posted. Then, if a victim comments or likes or shares the post, we are seeing the scammer starting to immediately engage with the victim in a sense that it's not even thank you or anything reacting to what the person posted. It's redirecting the victim directly either through private message or on private messaging apps. The ones we're seeing the most with those low quality romance scams are, of course, WhatsApp, Telegram, but more and more we are seeing this. I think it's from Armenia. It's called Zangi. It's like encrypted messaging app that is pretty used among cyber criminals because you can create accounts very easily without giving any information. And yeah, they're also starting to increasingly use this Zangi app to redirect the conversation. Because once the victim bites, basically, the goal is to redirect them as soon as possible in a private environment, a one-to-one environment where no one can interfere and the scammer can start socially engineering his victim or their victim. And from here, there is, of course, like the whole courting that takes place. Sometimes fast, sometimes they take their time and really try to build the emotional bond, but it really depends of where the network originates, from my experience. And then, of course, the scammer will start asking for money, for subscriptions, for crypto investments, for a lot of different things. But that's social media is interesting here because it's really the first step of the kill chain for romance scams. And we see scammers using their accounts on all social media platforms, not one like specifically, in order to lure in their victims. But we also sometimes see them come back to their social media account if, for instance, the victim stops answering them in private messages, which makes a very interesting use, in my perspective, of their social media accounts.
So in terms of the origin, right? The scammers is this network of scammers to a specific region coming from, or is it global problem, or what? Can you?
It's definitely a global problem in my perspective. We also obviously see networks that are linked to the Yahoo Boys, for instance, in Nigeria, but we've also encountered networks from Pakistan, from the Philippines. We had a very interesting case as well of a network that was posing on social media as matchmaking agencies
Mhm.
for African women to meet white men, which
Mhm.
didn't exist. And this one was really, it was both a romance scam, but also a scam that was playing a lot on being able to offer visas to those women. Basically, the posts,
Gotcha.
it was also, it was a very like threefold kind of
Yeah.
scam
Yeah.
because first they were trying to lure in women by saying that this white man was visiting this country in Africa and was looking for a wife,
Mhm.
and that in exchange for a wife, he would sponsor a visa to the UK, to Germany, and so on and so forth for her. And on top of this, the scamming pages were asking for a fee for the woman to be put in touch with the fictitious men on private messaging apps. And so this one was very interesting because they pretended to be based all across Africa, especially in Ghana. But what we've noticed is that most of the phone indicators that were linked to this network redirected to Kenya. So it was actually a network that was connected to Kenya. And we saw another network separate, that was actually impersonating Western influencers mainly to lure in men, especially from Southeast Asia and from Northern Africa. That was administered from Pakistan. And this one was massive. Like we found so many assets connected to this one. And it was exactly the same promise. It was very active on several platforms, and every time it was stealing videos of real content creators and putting messaging on top of the video, claiming that this very beautiful woman was looking for a husband and would sponsor a visa and also have a monthly allowance for the man she would marry. And it worked very well because it's playing both on love but also on people trying to get a better life and also sometimes trying to emigrate to
Mhm.
Western countries. And all that to say that this is not just one country or one continent issue. We've seen networks from everywhere.
Noted. Well, very, very interesting. So in terms of if we switch towards the victim, how it impacts victim, right? Uh,
Mhm.
when victims realize that they have been scammed, uh, what are the next steps? How do you see them uh, realizing that, and what are the early warning signs people should watch out for in such kind of scams?
I would actually recommend an incredible podcast on the matter because they were able to talk to the victims, but also to the perpetrators of the
Mhm.
scam. This is the Scam Inc. podcast from The Economist, which is
Nice.
incredible. But what we've noticed overall is that people tend to very rarely talk
Mm.
about it because I think there is this mix of shame and distress and denial as well. Most of
Yeah.
the time, we're talking about people who are emotionally very vulnerable that fall for those scams. Um, and often we hear about their experience through family testimonies. There are actual communities on Reddit, for instance, and on Facebook
Mhm.
of family members whose members of family have been scammed or are currently being scammed. And this is how those groups are very important first for the victim's family to be able to talk to people who've been in the same situation because this is not a situation you want to be in the first place. But also it allows us as a researcher to track the scams, how they work exactly, because the problem with romance scams mainly is that, and all type of scams that happen on social media right now, is
Mhm.
that outside of the first part of the kill chain, as I said, on open social media, most of it, all of it actually happens behind closed doors.
Mhm.
And this is one point that is made in the podcast that really resonated with me on the topic, is that sometimes people are so lonely that they know they're getting scammed, but they still knowingly
And
continue to
one
engage with the
person.
relationship to not lose the one social link they have.
Mhm.
But in terms of just coming to realization, we've seen desperate families trying on social media to resonate their relatives. And it shows just how difficult it is, especially
Yeah.
with the elderly, because we've seen, for instance, as I mentioned previously, we've seen some pretty serious cases of elderly women, especially being harassed on social media by their scammers. And sometimes it happens because the victim, for one reason or another, stops answering on Telegram or on WhatsApp. And so then the scammer comes back to his or their original Facebook account and go post on the victim's profile, asking them where they are, why they're not answering, that they love them, that they need them. And so I remember this case, for instance, of I think she was over 80 years old, American lady, who was answering this person, thinking she was talking to this American general,
Mhm.
telling him, I'm in the hospital, I broke my hip, I cannot move, I don't have access to my computer. And just the scammer continuing to harassing her, sending comments and comments and comments. And on top of that, other scammers
Mhm.
coming to swarm the publication with even more comments. And what was really so sad in all of this is that relatives from this woman jumped on the post
Mhm.
and were telling her grandma, those people are scammers, do not listen to them. They're
Okay.
not who they say they are, but it just didn't work. The person, the victim was like, don't worry, I know him, I trust him. And it's a burden in that sense for family because sometimes it can be very, very hard for people to just come to realize what's going on. Um, on top of that, what I would say is that outside of the emotional impact of it, it gets very difficult when a lot of money is engaged because getting this money back is
Yeah.
extremely difficult. Most of the
Mhm.
time, it
Mhm.
never happens.
Yeah.
It's an impact I want to highlight because I think it's less talked about. Because, of course, yeah, you have the devastating emotional damage that those scams leave. But I think there is, yeah, as I said, the shame of it. And this is a very good example that we've seen very recently of this woman who lost $880,000, I think, to a fake Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
And just seeing the way people reacted to the story, mocked her, and made
Mhm.
fun of her, I think this is the kind of reaction that can really discourage someone to speak up and talk about the fact that they've been scammed or even try to get help from the authorities, for instance.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough. The impact, the human side of it, and then also the financial side of it. And So in terms of these scams, Leah, do you see them merging with other fraud models like crypto scams or investment scams?
Oh yes, of course. I think this has become like an integral part, like not exclusively that, but it's become definitely like an integral part of romance scams. Um, One of the reasons I would say is because crypto is very difficult to track, especially when you're not familiar with how to track transactions, wallets, and things like this. Um, but what testimonies show us on social media, especially as I was saying in those Reddit groups and in those Facebook groups, is that very often investments and crypto exchange are part alongside other things like gift cards and so on, but it always comes back when people are talking about getting scammed. So I don't think this is gonna go anywhere, unfortunately. And yeah, as I said, crypto is a very efficient way for those because it's difficult to get back. TRM Labs sometimes does communicate about helping get funds back from romance scam victims, but overall, chances are that you won't see your money again when you get scammed through crypto. So
Yeah.
then that makes the scammers as well in an anonymity, not like relative anonymity position compared to a bank transfer, for instance.
Got it. Got it. So, um, in terms of leaving listeners with some practical advice, right?
Of course.
So, if someone suspects a loved one is caught in a romance scam, what should they do first?
This is, I would say, a tough question in the sense that, as I previously said, um, victims sometimes take a lot of time to realize, or even sometimes don't want to realize they're getting scammed. So I would say trying to talk to them is a great thing to start with, but not in a forcing way. Need to go slow and make sure to show empathy and care because it's a very, as I said, it's a topic, especially when it comes to emotion, to love, that can be perceived as something very shameful, like, oh, I fell for someone who doesn't exist, and I feel very ashamed about it. But also, once, if the victim is willing to talk, I would say trying to understand the process the romance scam was engineered. So, what exactly did they ask for? What has been sent, both in terms of money and in terms of personal information? And then, if the victim is receptive, of course, gather evidence to report the scam to the authorities, as well as stop all contact with the scammer and contact banks as well for transactions if transactions were made. But this is a process that can take a lot of time, as I said, due to the emotional entanglement of romance scams, unfortunately.
Right, right. So, do you see this problem getting better or worse? Is there any hope?
Unfortunately, I would say worse,
Okay.
but I'm trying to stay hopeful.
Yeah.
And I think that we as an industry, both from a technical and the
Mhm.
more analytical side of things, can do a lot on this because, especially when it comes to some of those groups, we're very lucky that they talk about it very publicly. In Telegram groups, especially, we've seen scammers. There are a couple of channels, for instance, that are hubs for scammers when they talk and sell tech to engineer their romance scams. They sell guides, even sometimes just circulate them for free on how to be the more efficient in scamming people for romance scams. We are also seeing them, for instance, organize competitions of who is going to scam the fastest and who is going to scam the best. So we as researchers and then as analysts, we have like this open window on this community that can be used not to obviously we are not fortune tellers, but we can analyze and make sure to understand where the trends are going and what is being discussed because outside of those groups you also have a lot of forums. There is a whole community surrounding romance scams on
Mhm.
social media and they're not hiding it. So this gives us a very good opportunity to start monitoring everything and to make sure that we stay on top of those trends, especially when it comes to technique, tactics, and procedures that are being used by those scammers, ways to create social media, how to curate your social media, and so on. Because I think one of the things I would see get worse would be the way the messages are written. Because what we're seeing right now is
Mhm.
that the messages that are circulated by those groups and those accounts on social media to scam people are usually very, very low quality. There are a lot of spelling mistakes. One marker that I always laugh at is that instead of writing message, they write massage. And so this is a very small thing, but it
Right.
can help you
Yep.
surface, for instance,
Yep.
networks of scammers that way, since they reuse the same message
Right.
over and
Right.
over again. But unfortunately, I think that this is a chance right now to find those networks and to surface them.
Mhm.
But with AI, at least if I compare what we are seeing, for instance, with completely different topic, but influence operations, is
Mhm.
that use of AI is making the detection work more difficult.
I agree.
Because
I agree.
instead of copy pasting something, they're just generating like 500 comments, different posts.
Right.
And to the naked eye, it doesn't look like inauthentic activity when it is. So this is something I think is going to be the biggest, at least most annoying part in detection,
Right.
unfortunately.
Right. Yeah, unfortunately, I agree with you as well. AI is going to just make it harder. So
Yeah.
going to get worse. That's the net, I guess.
Uh,
Leah, this has been such an insightful conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed speaking with you on this topic. Um, Before we close, what's the one message that you would like our listeners to remember about romance scams?
I would say, I think one of the biggest misconception about romance scam, and I'm sorry for the vocabulary I'm going to use here, is that you have to be dumb or to be an idiot to fall for a romance scam. This
Right.
is absolutely not true. Those scammers are playing on emotional, very human vulnerabilities, and no one is safe from
Right.
falling for that.
Agreed.
So, and if someone around you is ensnared with a scammer, take care of them
Yeah,
because the emotional burden of those things are extremely serious and can leave people with very strong PTSD.
agreed. Unfortunately, agreed. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Leah. This was a wonderful conversation. And I'm pretty sure our listeners would really enjoy this uh, topic as well. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.